Hi, I'm Becky Palick. I'm a reporter at the Arizona Daily Star. With me today is Mark Morrison, a candidate for the state senate in District 10. Mark, you've got a broad variety of experience in your background: military, business, politics. How did those experiences inform your decision to run for state senate?
Well, I was in the Air Force for 25 years, 10 years active duty, 15 years in the reserves. As an Air Force officer, any kind of military member, you end up really kind of focusing on getting things done, making a difference and finding issues and solving problems. And so that's kind of the way I approach things. At the same time, I spent 13 years excuse me, in business with Lockheed Martin Corporation. And in that arena, as well as when I worked on Capitol Hill, it was kind of bringing people together, bringing disparate groups together, right, left, center, and solving problems. So the combination of those two is where I come now to run for the state senate. I recognize issues, recognize problems, and want to focus on those and get those done and not worry about political kinds of things, but just focus on issues and problems and then bring people together to solve those. So my background has kind of lent itself towards that kind of an approach.
Great. So one big problem coming up, there's a forecast of a big budget shortfall. Right. Do you support tax reforms to help solve the budget problem?
You know, the Arizona tax code is really, really complicated. It's really hard to explain to people. Although and I know we got three major components of the tax code, and I think that we ought to do something to simplify that. And I think the more that we can do to simplify it and make it easier to understand for people, taxpayers to understand, the better off we are. And so I would support a broad range of tax reform, and there's some targeted areas I think that we need to focus on in getting additional revenues for, and transportation infrastructure is one of those. So I would be in favor of doing that.
Great. And you've said that education is a big priority for you. You have grandkids in Arizona schools?
I do.
Great. And what can the state do to correctly fund schools but still spend our tax dollars in a smart way?
Right. Yeah. And when it comes to education, and I think funding is a big issue. That's the biggest issue that we have on the state level. At the federal level, national security and defense is kind of the #1 priority for the government. At the state level, though, education turns out to be the #1 thing. We spend far more in education than any other budget area in the state budget. And so I think we need to focus on that and spend enough money. And money isn't the only answer, but I think allocating it the right way. When it comes to education, I think that we need to focus on and standards have been talked about a lot, and I just want to mention that I think everywhere I've worked, Air Force, Capitol Hill, Lockheed Martin, we have all those organizations set very high standards and expect you to meet those high standards. And so I think schools shouldn't be any different. We ought to approach schools the same way. And so high standards is important, and then at the local level, deciding what the curriculum is going to be, deciding what the textbooks are going to be that we use to meet those standards or exceed those standards, and then giving the teachers the freedom and the liberty within that classroom to do whatever they need to do creatively to help the students achieve those standards.
Great. There's some divisions in the Republican Party in the state right now. One of the divisive issues last cycle was the Medicaid expansion that the governor wanted. If you were in office, would you have supported that?
You know, it's hard to say. That was a very intense kind of a time, and there are a lot of pressures from all different sides. And again, from what I was saying before, I approach things from a kind of a pragmatic standpoint of taking a look at issues and finding solutions. And in that case, there were obligations that the state made in Prop 204 that we should cover certain groups. There are financial implications to this whole thing too that need to be looked at. And I could go on and on about other approaches to healthcare reform that I think that we could take and should take. And should have been taken years ago, but maybe that's for another time.
Sure. Great. Well, you can hear from Mark Morrison and his opponent, David Bradley, in a debate at 6 p.m. October 15th at Pima Community College's headquarters at Broadway and Rosemont. Thank you for watching.